And are you opposed to a shutdown, or do you think there would be advantages to that potentially?
Well, look, we don't want to shut down the government, Martha, but it's really up to the Democrats.
What up? What up? What up, everybody? Happy Sunday. Hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. Back in the city, folks. Back in the city. Unfortunately, we have just an inconvenient timing on me being out of the city because, you know, Rob Noor was really itching to debate me. And apparently I might have lost that privilege forever. Can you believe it? Oh, shit. Should I go over that, too? If we're doing the Twitter wars? I feel like I just want to show it because it kind of blew up in a way that I wasn't expecting. But he was just talking shit, man. What can I say? What can I say? If Rob is going to do this shit and he's going to be a little baby, I feel like he's asking it. Asking for it. Okay. Let me maybe start with that. Shit, wait. I should give you the full context. How you guys doing, first of all? What's up, what's up? Just give me a second to show you. Just to show you what happened. Oh, no. Oh, wait, I can just go to my Twitter. Sick. Okay, cool. Cool. I'll just scroll down. And then I can just show you. And then I can just show what's happening. Bing, bang, boom. Okay. Hope you guys are doing well. Happy Sunday. Rip Eric Adams. I know he's out of the race now. I find the little statement made by Hakeem Jeffries to be a little bit like, well, more than a little bit disqualifying, to be honest. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, because I saw some replies being like, well, his legacy is complex. You can't just round it out to he did this corrupt thing and he did this crime shit. But I should probably get a mention, you know? Because who knows? He might, like, tomorrow take a job with the administration, and then you kind of look like an asshole for fawning over him, Hakeem Jeffries. For those guys that don't know, Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the House Democrats, released a statement that was kind of like, oh, I can just scroll up to my Twitter. Just have it right here. Shit, I don't even know. Why not show you? Eric Adams has served courageously and authentically for decades as a member of the NYPD, the New York State Senate, and Brooklyn Borough Hall, and as our 110th mayor. During his time in office, violent crime is down, the building of affordable housing units is up, and New York City has recovered from the COVID-19 pandemic. As is the case in any major city, there are challenges that remain, particularly as it relates to the lowering the high cost of living. Yet it is clear that meaningful progress has been made in several important areas during the term of Mayor Adams. Thank you for your service to our city. Over the next few days, my entire focus will be on addressing the Republican healthcare crisis and funding the government. I will publicly weigh in with respect to the remaining candidates in the mayor's race well before the start of early voting. So, it's a deranged statement for many reasons. Reason number one is, where's the mention of Mayor Adams's sordid ending, conclusion, where he was indicted and cooked up a quid pro quo with the Trump administration to drop those charges in exchange for cooperation with ICE. And everyone who cares about preserving our republic and who cares about our city should be against this kind of federal encroachment. But I just think it's kind of whack that you don't include that part in there, Hakeem. Not just whack, it's a kind of pattern of weakness on this issue. Because Hakeem was also, I'm not going to call on him to resign. You're not going to call on him to resign when he's taking bribes from Turkey in exchange for official acts? You're not going to call him in to resign when he cooks up a deal with Tom Homan? Tom Homan, who's also taking alleged bribes? I would say he is. Or at least there's a conspiracy there with the sting operation. $50,000 in cash bills. Really? You're not going to call on him to resign for that? You're going to just have this kind of pretty praising message. No mention of the moves he was making to be pro-Trump. That's the one thing that, like, rubs me the wrong way. More than the wrong way, if I'm being honest. The next is he still hasn't endorsed. If you're talking a bit, like, you know, I'm going to endorse, I'm going to talk in the mayor's race. So it's not this question of, oh, I'm not going to get involved because it's a mayoral election. I never believed that garbage in the first place. That's just some whack garbage. I don't believe it. But you are going to weigh in. What's there to consider? What is there to consider at this point? Adams dropped out, so it's Cuomo, Curtis Lewa, who's a Republican, or the Democratic nominee. Why is it still up for, like, discussion who you're going to endorse? How does this help? How does it help the Democratic Party that you wait this long, unless you're planning on endorsing Cuomo? Cuomo, who has not so great... I mean, think about the options here. If you're Hakeem, either you endorse Mamdani early and you back a winning candidate and you don't piss off all the New Yorkers who, like, supported him in your home party's nominee, and then you look like, you know, like you're changing, like you're flexible, like you're willing to have a winning coalition. If you endorse Cuomo and he loses, you look like a jackass and everyone trolls you. If you endorse Cuomo and he wins, then the left hates you. So what's the plan here, Hakeem? How is this like a winning strategy? It feels so forced. Just like, by the way, when he was talking shit about Van Hollen the other day. Chris Van who? That's his own, like, spokesperson, is taking shots at a Democratic senator who's actually, you know, showing like he gives a fuck. So what is the plan here? I'm sure the plan isn't to endorse the Republican along with Mike Lawler. Okay, so he's not going to endorse Curtis Lewa. Adams just dropped out. So the choice is Cuomo or Mamdani. And endorsing Cuomo just is asking for a disaster, regardless of, you know, if he loses and you endorsed him, everyone's going to clown on you. And if he wins, everyone's going to hate you from the left. You scuttled your own nominee, and they'll never make you forget it. And I will be with them. I will definitely be with them. The guy seemingly has no political instincts. They have not done a good job telegraphing the position of the Democrats in this negotiation. Like, there's a negotiation coming up for the government shutdown. I think it might even be tomorrow with Trump. You guys are pretty clued in. If you're watching the Pisco's Hour stream, I assume you're pretty clued in on some level of politics stuff. Do you guys have any idea what the negotiating position is of the Democratic congresspeople? Something to do with healthcare? The comms have been abysmal. Like, truly, I mean, look at yourself in the mirror and be like, do I understand what the negotiating position is of the Democrats in this budget, you know, shutdown negotiation? Oh, right. And then Bumbling Bioengineer says the fact that, yeah, not making a decision also looks bad as hell. Yeah. What if a Jeffries endorsement hurts Mamdani? If that's the calculation, you should just you should have said at the start, I will not be endorsing anyone from the New York mayoral. It's not appropriate, or something like that. But he's not saying that, right? He's saying, I will weigh in with respect to the remaining candidates. That doesn't even sound like it's necessarily going to be an endorsement. So, like, I don't think that the Democratic leadership's in a good spot, which is unfortunate because I think that there's a lot to be happy about some of the candidates, some of the leadership here in the state governments, state Democratic parties, and some of the Congress people. But the congressional leadership is, I think, not doing their job. And it's not that I'm unwilling to give it. For me, it's like, it's not personal. If tomorrow I had confidence that Chuck Schumer could show up and do the job, I would be like, fine, we'll keep Chuck Schumer. If I had confidence that tomorrow Jeffries could do the job, I'd say, fine, keep Jeffries. But when is the last time you've been impressed by them? Have you been impressed by them at all in the Trump term too? Even one time in terms of their rhetoric, their messaging, or has it been like pretty much a nonstop embarrassment the entire time? Slash doing at best no additional harm. So like, if you're telling me that Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are the best we can do, that is a state of depression that I'm not ready for. Like, I can't believe and don't believe that Hakeem and Schumer are the best we can do. It's unfortunate they're both from New York. If Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez decides not to run for president, I am in full support of her primarying Chuck Schumer for his seat in 2028. Or someone else. Ditto for Gillibrand in the next election cycle as well. It's getting bad. And we didn't know who the fighters are and who are people who just want to lay down. Another person obviously on the chopping block who we talk a lot about on this channel is John Fetterman. John Fetterman today said, guys, we shouldn't be calling fascists fascists. Don't you know? We need to tone down the rhetoric. Stop calling these fascist moves fascists. That'll be a little bit of what we talk about. But first, we'll do a little Rob Noor recap. So Rob Noor is streaming, and he's taken this new arc. There's a new arc for Rob Noor. And that arc is basically that he's admitting to being a hypocrite. His new arc is I'm a hypocrite. Like you think that I'm exaggerating, but he's literally going around saying I'm a hypocrite. I'm a hypocrite.
And the funny thing is, like, they're coming after me for admitting that I'm a hypocrite, which I am, right? I used to not be for cancel culture. Now I am.
But it's not just, by the way, cancel culture. Like, he said that he felt ashamed that he even criticized the administration in terms of the FCC government pressure on networks, etc., on broadcasters for Jimmy Kimmel. So it's not just cancel culture. So he's admitted to being a hypocrite on multiple things. And so his new arc is, yes, it's good to be a hypocrite. We brought up Gavin McInnes, who took a similar position. And his whole thing is, yes, we're hypocrites. You made us become hypocrites. And so, you know, I'm on the train on the way to a venue or, you know, traveling. And I listen to Rob Noor sometimes. What can I say? We'll just play that one more time. And I happened to tune in like a minute before this clip.
And the funny thing is, like, they're coming after me for admitting that I'm a hypocrite, which I am, right? I used to not be for cancel culture. Now I am.
So I'm like, okay, this is beautiful. Why are you admitting this? Like, obviously we already knew that you were a massive hypocrite, massive bad faith person, but like, why even say it this way? You kind of already said it in a really bad way, but this is like the cleanest possible way you could admit it. And it's not me taking you out of context whatsoever, right? You could try to argue that, but he doesn't claim that. He doesn't claim that I'm taking him out of context. I'm totally taking him in context. It's in context. He's responding to an accusation that people are making based on his own words that he says he's a hypocrite. And his response is, yes, I am. What's the distortion here? And saying one is a hypocrite doesn't mean, like, you can do something that's counter to your principles and say, yeah, I was hypocritical that one time, but I'm going to strive not to be, right? That's one thing that you could say is my actions did not conform with my principles. Therefore I was hypocritical, but that's bad. But that's not what they're doing. They're saying like, I'm a hypocrite and I will continue to be so. That's what was Rob's whole video when he said, I'm ashamed. It wasn't that I'm ashamed that I was a hypocrite and I'm going to change. It's I wasn't a hypocrite enough and I'm ashamed about that. So it is in no way, in no sense of the word, am I taking him out of context, misquoting him. This is 100% his own words, his own characterization. And to the extent that he's ashamed about anything, he's ashamed that he wasn't more of a hypocrite. And no one really in his replies. He has this like collection of weird orbiters who I can tell they're a Rob, a Norbert. I don't even know what he calls his people. Norberts? We'll call them Norberts. I can tell they're a Norbert because they all say the same line. Like they'll say something like, the standard for investigation is very low, very low. And they'll say in the cadence that Rob will say it, or they'll type it in so as to emphasize the way Rob says it, which was one time in discussions of opening an investigation and in the context of like why it's so obvious that the investigation was necessary for the Russian hacking campaign of the DNC, you know, in addition to noting the evidence here that there was a hack, that there was a member of the Trump campaign who seemingly had prior knowledge of it, you know, that's pretty decent evidence, you know, to predicate an investigation. And the standard for investigation is very low. But they're so stupid, Rob included. They'll throw that at me and be like, oh, you said the standard investigation is very low. Like, we're not at the investigatory phase. We're at the indictment phase, number one. Number one, we're not at the investigation phase. We're now at the indictment and potential conviction phase, which have more stringent legal standards. Now, probable cause is not like a incredibly high standard, but it's not super, super low. It's like it's a low standard, but it's not super, super low as is predicated investigation. Probable cause does have some teeth. There are some things that are thrown out on probable cause. And then beyond a reasonable doubt for a conviction, obviously it's the highest standard that the law knows. So we're past the context of when I said that was the bar for opening up an investigation, which is a true statement. It's an accurate statement to say it's a low investigatory bar, but you kind of give away the game when you just admit that it's based on a pretextual rationale, right? Like you could say all you want, you know, the bar for standing investigation is really low, and then say, but I'm investigating you because you're Jewish. Well, if you're just admitting the bad motive in the investigation, then you're kind of, you know, doing all the work for us. And so when Trump is ordering investigations into his political rivals on explicitly political bases, he's kind of doing all the work for us, you know? Anyway, the Norberts in the replies, whom I'm able to identify, they're all, you know, not even alleging that I'm that I'm misconstruing what Rob is saying or his own characterization, because he is a hypocrite, obviously, no shit. And so I record this really quickly. I've gotten quite good at it, doing it fast. And in the immediate aftermath, holy crap! Wait, I might want to get it because it's a pretty funny reaction. Shit, might as well. It's a pretty funny reaction. Was this was on the September 26th, so I'm gonna just, oh my god, don't worry guys, just give me a second. It's pretty funny. And I also did watch this in real time, but I also couldn't hop on, and I also the last time we discussed shit, he started like not even being responsive. And so I do think it's important for us to hash out what it is we want to talk.
I feel like people need to hear this.
What it is we're going to talk about if we're going to have a debate. But it appears that Rob Noor is swearing off debates with me or something. All right, this is Rob's reaction to me posting that clip where he admits he's a hypocrite.
The Jimmy Kimmel FCC situation. You know, I feel like people need to hear this, and you know, obviously, you know, not.
Here, wait. Can I remove you for a second? I'll bring you back up. Hey, Pisco, I know you're watching, coward. Call in. You're watching. Call in. Come on, coward. Call in, you pussy. Go ahead, puss. Now, everybody knows he's a fucking coward if he doesn't call in, right? Everybody knows it. Here's his post from a minute ago. Here's Rob Noor once again admitting he's a hypocrite. And the funny thing is, like, they're coming after me for admitting that I'm a hypocrite, which I am, right? I used to not be for cancel culture. Now I am. And the funny thing is, like, they're... Where you at, Pisco? Huh, puss? Why don't you clip that clip, huh, Pisco? Why don't you clip it? Clip that for your audience. Let them know that you're a puss. Let them know. Now, I know you like to watch my show from the shadows, and you got your little audience that likes to watch my show from this audience, from the shadows. Call in. Call in, big man. Where you at? How do I know he's watching? A little slow on the uptake. Here is me from 3 minutes ago that Pisco just posted. A little slow on the uptake there, Imaginarium, huh?
Slow on the uptake? What does that mean, slow on the uptake?
Has put me on notice before. That's true. No? Oh, that's what I thought. So just so you know, everyone, just so you know, that's who he is. He's a coward. You know it. I know it. We all know it. Everybody could see it. Right?
I met someone else.
Everybody sees. So don't want to hear him later say, oh, Rob, I want you to call in my show. Let's set up a debate. He's a fucking coward. He's a tough guy. He'll like his own post. He'll talk tough to Dave.
I don't like my own. I retweet my own post. I don't like my own post.
Annoying people on. He's a piece of shit. Double standard. Writing it. That's who he is.
So he goes, I don't want to hear you try to set up a debate later. Why? Why wouldn't and couldn't I set up a debate later? As I ended my stream, it was a quick stream on this day. You know, I told you guys I was leaving town. We were going to a venue for a wedding. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I could have called in on the train, but I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure Amtrak would appreciate me like doing a debate, and the inconsistent cell service is a bit of an issue. Also, I want to be in my space when I'm doing a debate with Rob. I don't want to be fucking. Can you imagine me yelling about Alexander Smirnov and insurrection and shit with like kids nearby and shit? You know, so you know, I'm not gonna. I'm also not inclined to give him all the power and not be streaming myself, because what he'll do is he'll mute you. And so if I'm not streaming, I don't really want to. I want to make sure that either I'm also dual streaming so that I have a full record of everything being said, and it's not just him, because he has abused his mod before. And honestly, after our last interaction, I think a moderator might be necessary. But anyway, I'm totally happy to have that talk with him. Anyway, they're like, you won't debate. I'm like, fuck yeah. And then Ryan comes. So one is Wick is having a show next week, and so that's why I said come on Wick's show. Wick had already reached out to me about Comey, so I'm like, oh, why don't we have you join Wick's show? Apparently, Rob also has a rule of not interacting with Wick TV anymore, because Wick TV was like too biased. But I forgot that when I was recommending Wick, because I just knew that Wick was doing a Comey show. I'm like, oh, come on Wick's panel. And he goes, pussy, watching my show right now, can't call in, needs his buddy Quick to have his back. Ryan says, want me to moderate? You both yell at me from time to time, so should be a good neutral. And then one of his Norbert says, cat got your tongue? I go, totally down. Thank you, Ryan, for offering to moderate. Let's get the topics in order. My suggested propositions: the charges filed against James Comey should not have been brought, and Trump is interfering with the DOJ to go after his political enemies. And then Ryan goes, awesome. Rob, does that sound good to you in general? If it does, suggest the three of us take further discussion of Pisco's proffered propositions and the structure of the debate to DMs. And Rob says, Nope, no need to debate Pisco. He had his chance. Coward showed who he was, and this is what I think is the ultimate indication of fear and bad faith from Rob, is that he doesn't want a structured debate with clear propositions where there's a moderator. Because the last time we had something even approaching that, where we didn't have a moderator, but it was with structured propositions, he got blown the fuck out, where he had like this internal crisis. I watched one of his streams where he's like, that motherfucker almost convinced me he was right. Was I wrong? Was I like, no? And he was absurdly wrong. It was about the territorial jurisdiction rule versus venue rule thing, where I absolutely demolished him and blew him out of the water. And we had that little review with Ask Yourself afterwards. But so yeah, I think that he's happy to have a debate where it's like his stream and I'm not streaming, and he can mute me whenever he wants to, and where he can just like be belligerent. But in terms of the actual ideas, he's a complete coward, and there's evidence of it. He doesn't, and you can even tell based on what he said here, right? He goes,
So I don't want to hear him later say, oh, Rob, I want you to call in my show. Let's set up a debate. He's a fucking coward.
so I don't want to hear him later say, let's set up a debate. So the implication of what he's saying here is, I will only debate right now in this very moment. And if you don't take me up on it right this moment, you waive your opportunity forever to debate. Like, what the freak? And so, in response to that, a lot of people kind of clowning on him. Ryan says, I was excited to try on my moderator hat. Nick, this guy's funny. I follow him, and he actually has some good tweets. Lol, top 10 most cowardly tweets of all time. He got blocked by Rob. Rob is now blocking more people. He's like, I'm not going to care anymore. I'm just going to block people. And so this got him blocked. You're such a dipshit. A defeated male leaves. Pussy. General Alden has some advice for you. This is a stalling tactic. Self-proclaimed hypocrite calls Pisco a coward while dodging a debate. My God. He can just debate it with Claude. Pisco's a lot of things. Annoying, inconsistent. I don't think so. Snarky, smug, sneaky, etc., etc. Who's this guy? But a coward. Lol. Stop projecting. This is so weak, Rob. Coward alert. Tucker meme. This is my favorite one. The Sonic memes. Beta cuck. What do you mean his chance? You can always have a debate. He will let you use ChatGPT. Anyway. And then what did I say? I said, he ran. I was looking forward to this. Fuck yes, he did. I don't know what this is.
What you know about going down on some meat, giving brain?
What the hell?
Don't come, cause it's gonna get on my teeth. He been jerking too.
Okay, stop. Rob was talking so tough 4 hours ago. This guy's making fun of me. I'm in transit today. I'm traveling to a wedding venue. Why don't we just set up a debate? I don't see the urgency. And then he adjusts his shit, whatever. Anyway, he starts pissing me off, and so I hit him with this. And I shouldn't have done this. Listen, when Charlie Kirk got killed, it affected me, but I did notice that he like adjusted his tweet a couple times, and I sent this to someone because I thought it was funny in the moment. But I didn't want to clown on him in the moment because it's like, okay, you're kind of an asshole if you do that like the day he dies or whatever. So, but he pissed me off. he kind of triggered me a little bit. So I hit him with the dear God, and then I hit him with the dear God. And now it's like blowing up. It's almost got 100,000, which is way more than the other. Like, I'm sure people who are viewing this have no context into like why I said why I said this. But yeah, that's the Dear God. And so everyone's posting their favorite Dear God. Dear God. You don't believe in Dear God, Pisco? More Dear God shit. The tweet was a banger. Yeah. Anyway, that's the is there anything else in this? Oh, all right. So now let's get into the maybe I'll do the Comey stuff first. Because I think that now we have a critical mass of people. I just want to real quick make sure that my audience understands what's happening with Comey. So if you recall, folks, this is the 1.5-page indictment. And I'm just going to walk you through what the theories are so you can know when someone is a complete idiot and when they know what they're talking about. There's 2 counts, one lying to Congress and one is obstruction of a congressional proceeding. They're all kind of premised on the same thing. They're both premised on this statement that was made to Ted Cruz. They attempted to get a third charge. And this one had a different statement at issue. But it was rejected by the grand jury. So this was rejected by the grand jury. And so I want to walk you through this one more time and then get you through the theories very briefly. And you can understand why the case is so weak and why I know the things I think I know, why I'm pretty confident what the theories are. So remember, this has to do with a September 20th, 2020 statement by Comey that was incorporating a prior testimony from 2017. And the reason they're doing it now is because of the statute of limitations being 5 years. And so if you check the date, they were trying to get under that September 30th, 2025 deadline. So that's why they're bringing it now. And they don't actually include the thing James Comey said. The statement that they have as the alleged false statement was not uttered by James Comey. James Comey responded to this and said no. Basically, the Judiciary Committee, the Senator Chuck Grassley in 2017 asked him this. And in 2017, Comey said no. And then in 2020, he said, basically, I stand by my testimony. But they don't include any of James Comey's statements in this. So this is the alleged false statement. But just so you're aware, James Comey never made it. The substance of the statement is, I didn't authorize someone at the FBI to be an anonymous source in a news report regarding either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. And really about the Clinton investigation and the Trump investigation. Okay? Now, this might be a problem. If you don't include the statement that James Comey made that was false, could this be a defective instrument? This is the alleged false statement, but it doesn't actually include anything that James Comey uttered through his voice, right? Now, it's arguable that he adopted this statement in the 2017. So I don't know if, as a matter of law, they've whiffed on it because they haven't included any statement by James Comey because he didn't actually say this. But that's the kind of meat and potatoes of what they're alleging is you lied about not authorizing someone to be an anonymous source in a news report regarding an FBI investigation concerning either the Clinton investigation or the Donald Trump investigation. That was a statement made to Chuck Grassley in 2017 and then incorporated by Comey in 2020 to Ted Cruz. Okay? And the statement is allegedly false because James Comey had authorized person 3 to serve as an anonymous source in news reporting regarding an FBI investigation concerning person 1. this confuses some people because who the fuck is person 2? And who the hell are persons 1 and 3? I think we have a pretty good idea now. And so I just want to show you guys how I think I know who these people are and why I think the cases are so weak. I've already done like a video about this, but I just want to do this, a more specific one and a quicker one so that you guys can get a sense of it. And then separately, there's this statement that the grand jury rejected where Comey said that he did not remember being taught or being told. There's some dispute about that, whether it's being told or being taught of person 1 approving a plan concerning person 2 in the 2016 presidential election. And so for those of you wondering who's person 2 was included in the charge that the grand jury didn't actually follow through on, the charge that they rejected. So let's scroll down a little bit so you can get a sense of my thoughts. So I think we have reason to believe that person 1 is Hillary Clinton. I think that we have reason to believe that person 2 is Donald Trump. And I think that we have reason to believe that person 3 is Andy McCabe and or Dan Richman. And this is why I think we know this. So I think that we know that person 1 is Hillary Clinton because the failed charge references certain reports that allegedly, and this is, by the way, I think been investigated. I'm actually pretty sure that the FBI investigated this as misinformation, but there was some report that allegedly Hillary Clinton was approving a plan concerning Trump in the 2016 presidential election regarding Russia. So this is the full quote from Senator Graham. Senator Graham, September the 7th, 2016, the U.S. intelligence officials forwarded an investigation referral to FBI Director James Comey and Peter Strzok regarding U.S. presidential candidate Hillary Clinton's, quote, approval of a plan concerning U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump and Russian hackers hampering U.S. elections as a means of distracting the public from her use of a private email server. So this statement, right, apparently was investigated by the FBI and turned out to be false, right? And Graham asks Comey, do you remember this? And Comey's like, that doesn't ring any bells with me. So once again, they don't include in this charge the statement Comey uttered. But Comey essentially says, I don't remember if this was forwarded to me or whatever intelligence this is that was forwarded to me. Now, it's possible Comey is misunderstanding what Graham is asking because the way Graham is presenting it is a little bit confusing, because it suggests that it's like new information. But like Comey has talked openly about this intel he's demonstrated a previous understanding of this information such that it loomed large in even his decision to speak about Hillary Clinton's investigation, this particular insight. And so it's very unlikely that he was intentionally lying about this. But in any event, the statement was like, it's not ringing any bell right now. That was the statement. And the grand jury didn't charge. But what this helps us out with is we can decipher who the persons are, right? So Hillary Clinton's approval of a plan of person 2 being Donald Trump. That's why I think we're pretty good evidence that Hillary Clinton is person 1 and Donald Trump is person 2 based on the failed charge that didn't go through. Now, if this charge had gone through, this would have been related tangentially to the Russia investigation. The problem with a lot of the narratives going on about James Comey right now by MAGA is they're all kind of talking about how this is comeuppance for Russiagate, Russia investigation. But by its terms, what I think is true is that the indictment that it survived has nothing to do with Russia investigation. Has nothing to do with Trump. Because this part of the indictment that didn't go through, that there was no indictment by the grand jury, seems to suggest, I think conclusively, that person 1 is Hillary Clinton, person 2 is Donald Trump. And that would leave person 3 with being either McCabe or Dan Richman or someone else that we don't know, but I think it's highly likely it's one of these two. But I think more likely than not, I think over, for me, 90%, this person is Andy McCabe. There's some contradictory like information coming out though, however, that I think people are misunderstanding, and I think I can clarify a little bit. Because there are some people who are saying, no, we know this has to do with Dan Rickman. We know that Rickman is involved in some way. And there's like reporting from CNN that says, well, there's something about Dan Rickman. But there's also people who are saying this has to do with McCabe. And so who's right? I think they're actually both right. And I'll tell you how. I think that this part of it has to do with potential things with Dan Rickman, but Dan Rickman is not a person that's included here because of the nature of the allegations. Or is it Richmond? I don't know how to pronounce it. Sorry, Richmond. Dan Richmond. And I think that the charge that landed has to do with McCabe. Because this charge here that didn't go through relates to the Russia investigation, which relates to Trump. And that relates to some information we know about allegations regarding Richmond and the Russia investigation. However, the charges that actually stuck having to do with Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton is person one, that sounds more like a fact pattern associated with the McCabe theory. And so now I'm going to go through the three main theories here, and they're all terrible. There are additional theories that I think some of them have been debunked by the filing, or they weren't pursued, in other words. But these are the three main theories. The first is this Operation Tropic Vortex theory, or this Investigation Tropic Vortex theory. Durham had an investigation, and the IG had an investigation about a leak to the New York Times. New York Times. And there was even a trial of this guy Sussman, where the former general counsel of the FBI testified as to Tropic Vortex. And this was a leak from the FBI to the New York Times. But the story that fits the fact patterns of like what the disclosure was, that it related to classified information and stuff like that, and we know it's from October because that's where like the Tropic Vortex documents suggest that the story was leaked in October. The only story that like matches all the accounts is this Yahoo story about filters, right? A system intended to scan emails for CSAM and spam helped Yahoo, right? This has nothing to do with Trump or with Clinton. And that's the one that it seems to most likely to match. The other thing suggesting it's the Yahoo story is that the former general counsel Baker, who testified about this investigation, suggested it was about Yahoo, which has nothing to do, again, with this was in the trial of this guy Sussman. So this is a bad theory, but it's one of the main three theories. So because it doesn't really have anything to do with Clinton or Trump, it's not included in that statement because the statement was specifically about Trump or Clinton. But there was a lot of like rumbles. Oh, this Tropic Vortex thing might be it. It's the New York Times. Because there was another story in October specifically about the Russia investigation, but it just doesn't fit what we know to be the fact pattern of the different pieces of supporting like the attributes of what was leaked from the Project Vortex documents, namely that it relates to classified information, etc. And then also we have this evidence of the people who have knowledge of this account, including General Counsel Baker, saying that it was about the Yahoo story. Okay. And then, by the way, all of this has been investigated by previous Trump appointees and or Durham and or Bill Barr. So all of this, these have all been investigated already. So that theory is kind of not a very strong theory because it doesn't really relate to Clinton or Trump. Also, there's no independent evidence that anyone has ever produced that Comey authorized this leak at issue in Tropic Vortex, or that Baker did, or that anyone else did. Okay. The second theory is not to the New York Times. It's to the Wall Street Journal. And this is a story about an investigation regarding the Clinton Foundation. So this would fit the bill in terms of it being related to Clinton or to Trump. The problems here, as I've laid out in my previous video, are that there's no independent evidence that Comey actually authorized this. McCabe doesn't allege it. McCabe admits that he authorized this leak, but he never alleged that he sought authorization from Comey or that Comey gave it. There's a dispute about what was said afterwards. Comey seems to suggest, and the inspector general who reported this matter credits Comey as being more likely correct. Comey says he and McCabe had like a brief conversation on October 31st of the relevant year about the leak, but that McCabe hadn't indicated that he had authorized the leak. McCabe says that on October 31st, he did tell Comey that he'd authorized it, and Comey was like essentially okay with that he had done it. But the story was leaked on October 30th, and there's no indication that Comey authorized it. And in a second, right now, I'm going to actually show you a video of Comey and what he has to say about this particular theory.
My next guest has been all over the news this week, or his name has been anyway. He was James Comey's deputy at the FBI for a time. Let's see if he can shed some light on the case the government is bringing against his former boss based on an indictment that had very little actual information in it at all. Joining us now, the former FBI Deputy Director, Andrew McCabe, who was also a CNN senior law enforcement analyst. But today I do want to talk about your role at the FBI. Andy, have you, first of all, let's just start. Have you been contacted or interviewed by the FBI at all regarding this investigation into James Comey?
Yeah, not at all, Jake. I've not been contacted. I haven't been interviewed. They're not asked to interview me. And of course, if my interactions with Jim Comey 9 years ago in October 2016 was going to be the basis of this entire prosecution, it's unbelievable to think that prosecutors wouldn't at least want to sit down and hear what I had to say about it. Could potentially be a fact witness or just to understand what my perspective is, and that has never happened.
Yeah, I've seen others out there speculating that you're the person 3 named in the indictment as someone Comey allegedly authorized to leak information on his behalf. But a source familiar with the indictment told me that person 3 in the indictment is actually Comey's longtime friend, Columbia Law School professor Dan Richman, who was also a special government employee at the FBI at the time. Is that your understanding?
So I don't think that this is right. I don't think that it's Dan Richman. Because I think that the Dan Richman stuff relates to the theory that was dropped by the grand jury regarding the plan concerning person 2. I think this is the Arctic Haze theory. Now, it could be the truth that it's Dan Richman after all. I'm not saying it's not possible. Maybe it's Dan Richman, and Dan Richman separately had this stuff about mid-year exam. And that's the Clinton investigation. So perhaps Tapper is correct, and it's Richman about Clinton. But if that's the case, then there's no evidence that Comey authorized these disclosures, anonymous disclosures, to the various different news organizations regarding the Clinton investigation, especially because Dan Richman was not anonymous in many of these different cases, right? Anonymous source in news reports. There's no indication that, regarding the relevant investigations. I think Dan Richman used his name in many of these different pieces that he did, or where he was talking to news organizations. So it's possible Dan Richman, on their theory, the government's theory, was disclosing, and he was interviewed by prosecutors recently. It's possible that they are cooking up some theory that he was disclosing information regarding Clinton. But again, it's a high bar because, as far as I know, there's no independent evidence that he, arguably wasn't at the FBI, right? He was a special government employee at a time, but was he at the FBI? Was he an FBI agent just because he's a special government employee? He's not. Is he really an employee of the FBI? So that's going to be a big issue. And you have to prove not just that Comey was wrong, but that he lied, right? That Comey was lying, that he interpreted this the way that and intentionally was lying, right? Not just that he was wrong. And so arguably Richmond isn't even an employee, right? Someone at the FBI. You have to prove that Comey lied about that. Not just that he was, I guess, an employee of the FBI. Was he anonymous? Doubtful. I think that he wasn't anonymous. And then again, you're going to have to prove that he lied about that. And especially because Comey has been very open about Richmond. So why would he lie about something that was just like very blatantly, like he's been like quite upfront about the fact that he talked to Richmond about like the memo, and he talked to Richmond about various different things. And so the theory of him having lied is just very bizarre. And arguably like untrue given the base facts here. But listen to what McCabe further says.
Standing as well, or do you not know?
This is regarding who person 3 is. I think it's likely McCabe, but it could be Richmond, if I'm being honest. It could be Richmond. I think it's likely McCabe, but the fact that McCabe wasn't interviewed maybe suggests more that it's Richmond, maybe. But I just think that the Richmond prosecution would be so horrible.
None of us know with great specificity because, as you said, the indictment really has no facts in it whatsoever. But as far as I'm concerned, I absolutely do not believe it's referring to me in any way. There's a couple of reasons for that. First, I never asked Jim Comey to authorize any disclosure to the media because I didn't have to. At that time in the FBI, there's only 2 people who had the authority to make that decision independently. One was Jim Comey and the other was me. It was something I did as a part of my job pretty routinely. So around that exchange in October, just that request never happened, which would make his answer to Chuck Grassley's question in 2017, if that's what they've clearly indicted him about, doesn't really have anything to do with me. As far as Mr. Richmond is concerned, there were a number of leak cases opened by the FBI in 2017. And at least one of those included several articles in which information about our investigations had appeared and potentially in an unauthorized, not in an officially authorized fashion. Mr. Richmond was interviewed and investigated as a part of those leak cases. I would expect that Jim Comey, and probably I, was also included in the initial list of potential suspects, as is very routine in leak cases. Every person who has access or had access to the information that is thought to have been leaked is included in that group of suspects initially. But those cases were all closed in 2020. So after 3 years of investigating, after interviewing Mr. Richmond, after no doubt looking at computer and telephone records from everyone who had access to that information, these cases were closed without any requests for indictments.
Yeah.
So the idea that they would use those cases now, all these years later, is bizarre.
Well, the source familiar with the indictment told me that it actually is in reference to what was called the Arctic Haze leak investigation, which deals with those 4 stories that you're referring to in the New York Times, Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal. Richmond was interviewed. Richmond denied that Comey authorized him to leak. But let me ask you just more broadly. The indictment says that Comey lied in 2017 and then again in 2020 when he was asked about the 2017 testimony, when he denied having ever, quote, authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation, unquote. Given your experience with Comey, was he honest when he said he had never authorized a leak?
All I can say to that, Jake, is I'm not aware of Jim Comey ever authorizing some other person to leak information. That's not something I experienced personally. It's not something I saw in all the time I spent working around Jim Comey. So I can't sit here and characterize his testimony, which I think is far from clear enough to be the basis of a false statement or perjury prosecution. But nevertheless, all I can say is what my own experience revealed, and that is I didn't ever see Jim Comey authorizing other people to leak information.
You're an attorney. You spent more than 20 years at...
So here's the rub. We have these different theories of what the statement is. I think that there's a 99.99% chance that person 1 is Hillary Clinton. So whatever this is going on here, I think relates to Hillary Clinton leaks. And that's for the reason I stated before. So that narrows it down to either the McCabe conversation about the Hillary Clinton Foundation or kind of unknown disclosures regarding this Arctic Haze investigation in which Dan Richmond is, person 3. But there's no evidence that Comey authorized Dan Richmond to speak about mid-year exam or about any other Clinton matter. Arguably not someone at the FBI, unclear, right? You have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Comey knowingly lied, right? Is he at the FBI? Was he anonymous in these reportings? So that Richmond theory has a shit ton of problems. And also, even just the notion that James Comey has been pretty open about the fact that Dan Richmond was someone that he talked to and that he included in his thoughts, and someone that he relied on for advice, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the kind of the three different working theories. I think that it's a pretty, it's pretty weak case no matter which road you take down, right? The McCabe road has no evidence. The Richmond road, either about Russia or about potential Clinton disclosures, has no evidence either, and that we're aware of, have already been investigated prior, and where the statements, like McCabe said there, are far from clear, and where you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Comey lied. This is a very, very shitty, in my opinion, indictment, and the fact that it's so sparse is a little telling, to be honest. Also, the fact that they didn't include any verbal utterance by James Comey, like, it doesn't actually include anything James Comey says. Perhaps the statement that he adopted, but did James Comey state? Who stated this? Maybe there's some case law that says that if you adopt a statement, that it but where's the evidence that he adopted it, right? Do they include any evidence that from which someone can conclude that he adopted the statement, right? Because he certainly didn't make it. But yeah, that's my take. He lied for sure. Mario Montoya, would love to have you in the Discord to actually discuss this, because if you have that information, we'd love to hear it and assess it. What's your evidence that he lied? And what did he lie about? We'll hear from Mario Montoya. What's the evidence, sir? We're wanting to hear from you. Mario Montoya. Also, great time if you guys follow me on TikTok, Pisco Liddy. That's a really big ask, and I'm asking you to do it. If you have Insta as well, at Pisco Liddy. But also, this is really for disagreements. If you disagree on the Comey stuff or anything, feel free to jump into the stream disagreements, especially if you disagree on this indictment. We want to hear from you. I haven't had a single person agree to or come have a discussion about this indictment. I've been looking, and I don't find anybody. I don't find anyone. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. If not, we got some other fun little memes to pursue just for a second. But yeah, looking for you, Mario Montoya. We need you. Where are my MAGA folks? I don't use a Chinese PSYOP data harvesting site. Don't worry, Dr. Sayas. People seem a little sleepy today. All right. If there's nothing else, thank you for the sub. Also, subs are great, guys. If you love subbing, if you love showing love for the country, I'm sure Nor loves it. Nor loves it, but he's like, he doesn't, he just likes it because it's political prosecutions. I also love who are you debating on the Wix panel on the Comey stuff? So there's one other guy, something Gen Z something, I think. Maybe Gen Z something. Is it Gen Z? Is it Gen Z attorney? Gen Z attorney. And we're looking for one other person. I doubt we'll find one. And if we do, it'll be some lolcow who's like, I Comey. Yeah, Nor just likes it because it's political prosecutions. I do think it's funny that all of the people who are like criticizing the intel agencies and DOJ and shit, now they love the intel agencies. They love the DOJ. Like, we support Pam Bondi, we support indictments, we support political prisoners. Please not Gen Z attorney. Oh shit, is he some lolcow? Gen Z attorney. That's the name I see. Gen Z attorney. Is he some weirdo? So let's unless there's anyone who wants to come and talk to me about this little indictment. We love the deep soy. If you guys don't want to talk to me about the indictment. All right, so I had this woman who I guess has a following, 100K. I don't know how I feel about this whole thing. Anyway, I'm a bit of a boss calling people fascist because the administrations, we're not going to talk about it right now, like the new EO marching order. I have to read more up about it. He's really Gen Z Rob Noor. Gen Z's not that bad. He's wrong sometimes, but he's okay. Or, well, we're going to be the negligent person standard. In a criminal case, the negligent person standard for a criminal case? How is he going to bring that up? How do you find the will to argue with these people that are 1,000,000% bad faith? I just think it looks good for the side of truth, justice, and the American way, man. To have these like lol cows come on. I mean, the attorneys that I talk to on YouTube, they're bottom of the barrel. I don't even know who the most respectful conservative attorney I talk to. I would say Ryan Mullally probably, and just in terms of some base appreciation of them as like actually saying words and making thoughts. But the standard is super, super low, and I just think that that's a good look for people who believe in justice. Anyway, there's the marching orders are to consider people who use the term fascist. They should be like looked into, or it should be some kind of additional intensifier for investigation or something like that. That people referring to others as fascist is somehow illegitimate or inciting. And so we're going to look at like two threads, one with this guy Sick Unchained, and the other with the person themselves. So I say Trump's a fascist, Kirk was a fascist, sickos in charge of the administration are fascists. And she says, these people want us all these people want us all dead. These people, they want us all dead. And so the implication for that, right, these people want us all dead, is that this statement is an indication that I want these people dead. And including like all of us and the all us, right? All of us, I'm assuming are like MAGA people. That me calling like discrete people fascists means I want them dead. That I'm basically saying they should be dead. That's the implication here. He brands himself, this is of the Gen Z civil criminal litigator on Twitter. If he's Gen Z, he can't have more than at most a few years of practice under his belt. Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, I'm not going to hold that against him. I'm just like, I'm going to let the arguments do the talking, but appreciate the little scout report. So she goes, these people want us all dead. And she's getting some replies, kind of clowning on her a little bit. Then we get into my reply to her. Say, that's ridiculous. Calling someone a fascist isn't calling for death. That doesn't make any sense. Should we do the Sick Unchained thing first? So Sick says the following. You specifically don't have to call for anyone's death when the simple attribution of the label for many justifies assassination in its own right. So I don't know if this guy's like suffering from some mental hang up here. You specifically don't have to call for anyone's death. You don't have to, with respect to what? I don't have to do anything, I guess. I don't have to call people fascists. What the clear implication of this statement is, you don't have to call for anyone's death with the simple attribution of the label for many justifies assassination in its own right. The implication here is that I'm causing the death of people, or I'm potentially causing the death of people. But that, of course, is not what she's saying, right? Under this interpretation, I guess, like, I could be unintentionally causing the death of people by calling them fascists. But that's not what she's saying. She's saying, I want them dead, right? So that's not a defense of what she said. You're just saying some other random shit that has nothing to do with what she said. And also, more to the point of the core of what this dude is saying. So what if for some people, you know, they would justify the assassination of people who have a label, right? Like someone made a really good example in the replies, which was like, if you accurately called someone a CSAM enjoyer, that might cause many people to justify the death of that person, but it wouldn't mean you wouldn't use that label. Like, and it wouldn't be calling for the death of such a person to just be accurate about that, right? That's a hypothetical. I'm not comparing them in the sense that they're saying they're equal in all respects. It's a comparison. So that, I mean, like, I just don't, this statement could only have been like offered by someone who's clearly not tracking what's being said, or is just saying something like random in response to what I said, or that saying like I should feel guilty because someone who I don't know would interpret my statement as a justification for death. By the way, justifications of killing, by the way, is protected speech. You could say that it would be justified, and that's all protected anyway. But maybe he's implying some kind of moral guilt. As though, like, I'm sure that me calling someone a Republican, someone somewhere might justify the death of that person. Wouldn't be me. But so, like, this guy is just very confused. And I say, I don't understand what you're saying. Are you accusing me of calling for someone's death by calling someone a fascist because some people might think it's justified to kill fascists? Because that's kind of in line with my intuition about what this person is saying, which is that I'm intentionally celebrating, you know, calling for, enjoying the death of other people. And so I'm trying to be charitable here and align what this guy's saying to what she's saying. But this guy's just like too stupid. Just, no, I'm saying that they're pointing out a level of indifference to it. To what? To death? They're not pointing out indifference to death. They're saying I want death, right? Like, indifference means you lack a desire for something. Wanting something is the opposite of being indifferent. If someone says to you, hey, do you want pizza or pasta? And you're like, I'm indifferent. That means you don't want one or the other. You don't have a desire for either. But if someone says, I actually want pizza, are you indifferent? Or someone says, you want pizza. Are they accusing you of being indifferent or having some level of indifference? Or are they saying you're not indifferent, you're actually wanting one versus the other? So this person is a deluded person who just does, like, can't read or something. They're pointing out a level of indifference? In what sense? These people want us all dead. They're pointing out a level of indifference. Like, how do you possibly reach that conclusion? I don't agree with that assessment. So you don't agree with a level of indifference, but then you've skipped over to another extreme, which is you claiming that they're accusing you of calling for the death of individuals. Yes, right. In Ford, these people want us dead. What is, like, you're saying you want us dead? You're calling for us to die by putting out this statement. I responded to that. I said, I don't think it's extreme to claim that someone accusing me of wanting people dead, like in the future, right? I.e. that I desire a particular outcome, specifically the people labeled as fascist dying, and highlighting my language as evidence is accusing me of calling for death. I don't think that's extreme, especially since that's the theory of the current government. It's in the MAGA zeitgeist, and it's where your mind immediately went. And then he replies, you're wrong. You're using the label in a particular climate in which you know that label is, in and of itself, used as a justification for violence. Independent of your own beliefs about when violence should be applied, people can and do consume your and others' assessments of individuals, and I think it's perfectly reasonable in a climate where being a fascist is used as a sole justifier for violence that someone might think you are indifferent to their death. Death to fascists isn't some political message invented by the MAGA zeitgeist, but it certainly is a growing sentiment. I mean, I don't know what to say other than, like, so by that logic, you know, death to fascists has been around since there's been fascists. Muerte al fascismo. That's fucking Spanish Civil War, bro. Does that mean I can't call anyone a fascist? Otherwise, I'm, quote, indifferent to their death? It's also a standard that wouldn't be applied, and we'll get to that when I go through the exchange with this woman who's, like, stupider than anyone I've encountered, perhaps besides this person. I said, you said a lot of stupid bullshit, but here's the easiest debunk. OP did not say that I was indifferent to death. She said I wanted death. Indifference to an outcome does not equal wanting an outcome. You agree that you're wrong, yes or no? He doesn't reply for like a lot longer. He's been replying pretty quickly. So I ping him again. So sick, in case you need more help, indifference is generally understood as lacking a desire in a particular outcome. Wanting is generally understood as having a desire in a particular outcome. Still waiting for your response. You can call it stupid bullshit, but if you can suss out the difference between wanting and indifference, you can suss out the difference between wanting something and calling for it. So after I'd already responded to that ridiculous little nuance he's trying to push, I said, I already responded to that. My position is further evidenced by my back and forth with her, which we'll see in a second, and what she obviously meant, which was that I am calling for people's death. You still haven't responded. Are you willing to say you were wrong or not by attributing to her position that I'm indifferent as opposed to wanting? And she says, it looks like from her response that I understood her correctly. She's challenging you on your liberal application of the word fascist. That sounds like a challenge to your perceived indifference, not an active desire, especially when she uses words like tacit endorsement. It implies she thinks the endorsement is a logical result of what you believe in the words you use, but not an active pursuit of yours. So get what he's saying. He's saying a tacit endorsement isn't an active belief. Maybe indifferent is too soft a word. It just doesn't apply. It's not about softness. This guy's so stupid, right? Like, it just means the total opposite. Having a desire versus not having a desire. It's not about softness. It truly, and I hate these effort posters who pretend to be effort posters and just like are trying to concern troll. And I say that in a second. And so I hit him with is an endorsement indifference? In other words, if I am tacitly endorsing, am I indifferent? Easy yes or no. Can we get that from you? No. So you agree she is characterizing me as endorsing death for certain people. So what is incorrect about my statement? I take an endorsement, implicit or explicit, to be giving public approval of a thing. She's saying I'm publicly approving for people to be killed. And this is my equivalence of calling for. Tacit endorsement. You're engaging in bad faith. I get you can be a worm. I mean, and now who's being the worm? It's a total projection here. You got crushed and can't admit it. Yeah, I think we should defeat the fascists through the ballot box and in the court of public opinion. That's been my long-standing position. I condemn the violence. Not going to stop calling fascists because someone got shot. And then I say I've always condemned it. They're still fascists. And this is me saying I condemn the Trump assassination attempt, and I rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. And then he says, I've already stated that indifference is too soft a word. You can't identify a single thing I said that was incorrect, and it's annoying to have pretend effort posters concern troll over a long-standing position that no reasonable person could take as an endorsement of, desire of, or indifference to illegal political violence. I mean, this is really what we have to deal with on both sides. People, I guess, on the left, I don't know who this dude is. Oh, and then this guy said, I don't need to cup your balls and bear your load in my mouth for the conversation to reach its conclusion, nor the opposite. I'll leave that to the Destiny orbiters. I don't know what Destiny has to do with any of this shit. Or the Destiny orbiters or cupping balls. I don't know what this has to do with any of the fuck that we're talking about. But we have to deal with, like, people who are having ridiculous interpretations of language. And on the right, who are kind of weaponizing the language to fit their narrative. And then we have to deal with people like John Fetterman and this loser to concern troll about the use of a term. Like, I called them a fascist before he was assassinated. I called Trump one before they attempted to assassinate. I'm not going to, that would be, I think, hypocritical or inconsistent of me to, change my outlook on their political ideology based on what? Because someone tried to kill them? I'm not going to do that. That would show me to be a fucking hypocrite who just responds to the news like Drew Pavlov and wants to be on board for the latest thing. Anyway, she responds, it's okay if we repeatedly dehumanize you as long as we don't actively call for your death. When you label your enemies fascists over a period of years, you give a moral justification and tacit endorsement. So she is saying, I'm tacitly calling for the death of others. So it's not this whole thing of, oh, you're not endorsing it. She's saying, I'm endorsing it. I'm endorsing violence in a forward-going basis. I say, I'll debate you on this specifically if you're interested. Let's hope whatever bullshit standard you come up with is one you're willing to apply to all MAGA shills and politicians who have called Democrats fascists, communists, satanic, etc. Let me know. Oh, I just realized you're that retarded guy I saw on Tim Pool once. Then I imagine it won't be hard for you to explain why when Trump says Kamala Harris is a fascist, he's not wanting to have her killed. But when I call Trump a fascist, I do. Either way should be an interesting discussion. We'll DM later today. And apparently she's not interested in the conversation. No, you won't because I don't follow you. We're discussing this now over publicly. And I say simple. Calling someone a fascist isn't calling either implicitly or explicitly for someone's death, unless you're willing to concede that Trump called for Kamala Harris's death. Are you willing to concede that? I am not Trump. I am me. You are you. You are not Trump, and you shouldn't sloppily use a word. It's about what the word means, idiot. You said that I wanted people to die because I used that word. Do you likewise think Trump wanted Harris to die? It's a simple question I've asked multiple times, and you call me retarded. It's sad you take your moral cues from Trump. It's sad you want to water down the word fascist. It's sad you never listened to Charlie Kirk in the depth. In the depth or in depth? In depth. I listened to Kirk closely. I'm not taking moral cues from Trump, idiot. It's called semantic analysis. I'm trying to show you that I don't want someone dead just because I call them a fascist. Doesn't seem like you're tracking. No, you don't listen to Kirk closely. You never did. If you did, you wouldn't call him a fascist because he wasn't. And then there's another line of shit, where is it? One sec. Then she did another quote tweet. These people's logic is that because Trump does it, it's okay for me to do. Why are you taking your moral cues from Trump, especially if you hate him? So you're actively and openly becoming what you hate by lowering your moral standards because Trump does it. Like, this bitch is so stupid. She thinks that I'm like saying, well, Trump called Kamala a fascist and therefore I can do it because Trump did it. When clearly what I'm saying is not that. No, my point is that most people would not assume that Trump is calling for Harris's death when he called her a fascist. It's not about standards. It's about what the word means, dipshit. You guys don't actually think X is a fascist means they should die. You seem incapable of talking about anything other than Trump. It's a shame you take your moral cues from him. It's not about moral anything. Jesus, you people have sub-zero IQ. It's about the meaning of a word and its entailments. I'm not citing Trump's word for some moral standard. I'm citing it to show you that people don't understand the word and necessarily imply death. It is about the meaning of the word. I agree. So why are you using the word outside its meaning? I don't think I am, but regardless, whatever it is I'm doing, I'm not calling for people's death implicitly or explicitly. Agreed? No. Okay, if that's your view of the term fascist, agreed that Trump was calling for Kamala's death when he called her a fascist? I made my position on the overuse of the word clear. I don't take my moral cues from Trump, who is not conservative and is a sinner. Okay, I'm going to try one last time since you seem too stupid to dress yourself. I put the wrong two, so, fuck me, right? I'm not asking you to condone his use of the word. I'm asking you to take a position on what he meant by the word. You say, I mean death. Is that what Trump meant too? And she doesn't respond. Anyway, it just goes to show you that these people, she has like 100,000 followers. They are so stupid. They can't track anything. The most simple, like, hey, what do you think Trump meant when he said Kamala Harris is a fascist? Do you think that he meant she should die? That's like the question, right? And she goes, why are you taking your moral standards from Trump? I'm like, what? Do you have like a mental problem? Did you hear the question? I can ask it 3 or 4 different ways. Report her to the FBI. She called Trump a sinner. Like, this is the level of intellect that we have to deal with on major MAGA influencers. They can't even like understand. Either they can't understand or they just are being bad faith. And I think that she's actually having trouble reading. I think she is having a cognitive problem even understanding the import of what I'm asking. So like whatever you take from the term fascist, it isn't understood as a call for someone's death just to call them a fascist, unless you want to say that like all the conservatives, all the MAGA influencers, including Charlie Kirk, including Stephen Miller, including Jack Posobiec, including Donald Trump, including like everyone, including fucking Vance himself, of Trump. Unless you all say that, oh, they're calling for the death of everyone that they refer to as a fascist. It's so stupid. And so I encourage you guys, keep calling Trump a fascist, because he is one. Keep calling Kirk in retrospect a fascist, and keep calling anyone who supports like going after people with the law based on them calling someone a fascist. Because if you support, or if you say, oh, we should report to the FBI anyone who calls anyone else a fascist, I think you probably are a fascist. Like the stream if you agree. Follow me on TikTok if you agree. Sub to the channel. Oh, by the way, when we get to 25K subs on YouTube, as I promised before, we'll do another Q&A. That's a big milestone for me. It would mean the world if we got there one day. Got some blue guys. Got some new emotes gonna come up at some point. That's some good shit for my team, for my squad, for my Peace Corps squad. But yeah, I don't see anyone in the... Or do I? Wait. I think this guy's a troll. It's this Erkling guy. I think he's a troll. I don't think I'm going to give him the time of day. All right, I'll have him on real quick. Why are you trolling? I recognize you now. You're trolling.
Wait, who?
Yeah, you're trolling. You are. You. Erkling.
I don't think I've said anything yet, but okay. Look, man, I just want to talk to you about the Comey shit, but that's really a distraction.
I think that you're trolling. You were trolling when you did the Holman stuff. I think I recognize you. I think that you were trolling me by pretending that you were a conservative. I think that's what you're doing. I think that you're a plant.
Yeah, I said it was an animal, but no, I'm definitely not trolling you. And I mean, we had a discussion before that was about the LA deployment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, seems like I was kind of right on that, but that's just us for. Maybe you wouldn't want to talk about that, but yeah.
No, I don't think you were right about that.
They said like basically they said through the governor, some it's not like a real thing, and then they were like, that was the upper court, right?
It's gonna be heard en banc by the Ninth Circuit, or they're considering whether to hear it on en banc in the Ninth Circuit. But additionally, there was another trial where they found it violated the Posse Comitatus Act as to the specific procedural requirements. They took the line that they're bound by a certain precedent on it, where there's like more recent precedent related to the Alien Enemies Act, which I think they wanted to apply, but couldn't based on in their interpretation. But I listen, we don't know how it's going to turn out in the Ninth Circuit and bank, or if it'll appeal to the Supreme Court, or if Newsom will decide not to appeal it because he won on Posse Comitatus. So we'll see. Anyway, you're a troll, bro.
I don't know how to respond to this. Like, I'm not a troll, but look, if you want to talk about Comey, we can. If
Yeah,
you
what do
want
you
to dodge, you can do that.
What do you want to say about Comey?
Well, did he or did he not lie?
No, what did he lie about?
Before- What did he lie about?
Yeah.
Have you not been following the case?
I followed it, yeah.
Okay. So do you need me to tell you what he lied about?
Yeah, I don't think he lied. I don't think there's evidence that he lied.
Other than the letter from Ted Cruz?
What letter
guy
from Ted
McCabe?
Cruz?
To Ted Cruz by McCabe?
What letter from Ted Cruz to McCabe?
The one that was sent?
Can you just describe what the lie is? We can just do this very easily. Just tell me what the lie is.
The lie is that, well, basically the lie is that he says that he did not authorize, one of his underlings to, leak shit to the New York Times, but
He never
the
said
letter
that.
was, yep.
So first of all, the statement.
Yeah, he said no to the
No,
question.
hang on. So no, he never said that. He never said to the New York Times specifically. It's about to the news media generally about investigations specifically related to Russia or Clinton. Do you have any evidence he did
And
that?
was there? Yeah, Russia.
Wait,
There was
sorry,
evidence,
what?
There was evidence that he leaked, that he had McCabe leak to the media, specifically the New York Times, that, about the Russia investigation. into Trump.
What is that evidence?
That McCabe said so to Ted Cruz. What do you mean?
McCabe never said that to Ted Cruz.
We got to go through the facts. How would you characterize the letter between the correspondence between Ted Cruz and McCabe?
I'm not even aware of it.
You're not even aware of this?
No. What letter?
Okay. Here we go. I'm pulling it up. All right. I'm quoting Wikipedia now. In a December 2020 letter to the Department of Justice, U.S. Senator Ted Cruz wrote
That's a
the
letter
former FBI
to. Sorry. That's a letter to the Department of Justice. That's not a letter from McCabe, correct?
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay. So what's your evidence that McCabe, on Trump or on Comey's ordering, like leaked something?
Yeah, okay. So basically, Ted Cruz wrote the former FBI official Andrew McCabe had said that Comey was aware of McCabe's authorization to leak to the press, but Comey has denied the claim.
Yeah. So what is the evidence that McCabe sought authorization from Comey, or that Comey authorized McCabe to say anything to the press? I'm asking for the evidence. What is the evidence?
Well, the evidence would be Ted Cruz correspondence with the DOJ.
That's not evidence. It's that Ted Cruz asking the DOJ for something or sending a letter. That's not evidence of McCabe. Ted Cruz wasn't there,
Well,
so what's the evidence? What's the evidence that's cited to by the letter? That's not evidence. That's a letter to the DOJ.
Well, it's that McCabe said this. Like, what do you mean?
So McCabe says that he authorized a leak. He doesn't say that Comey authorized or told him to authorize it. And it doesn't have to do with Russia. It has to do with Hillary Clinton. So you're wrong about that.
Okay, and what's your point?
Well, you're the one who has a position that he lied, and you haven't produced evidence of that.
I mean, like I have. He said, okay. Do you think he wasn't? Oh, you think he wasn't aware of the leak? Do you agree there were leaks to press media? You know,
I'm sorry, you're asking me questions. I mean, you have the burden of proof, don't you?
why am I a prosecution? What's your point?
You're the one who made a claim,
I don't think either of us is a burden of proof.
Well, you made a claim, didn't you?
You've made a claim as well. We both made claims. You say the indictment is illegitimate and that he didn't do something. I say he did do something.
I know,
we both made a claim.
You came on here. You came on here to make a claim that Comey lied.
And you've been on your show making the claim that he didn't lie. Why the hell do I have a higher?
Well, I just don't think there's good evidence that he lied,
bearing?
because there's an absence of evidence. And so everything that I've been presented with doesn't show that Comey lied. And so I'm
Okay, well,
I'm seeking evidence of it.
Of McCabe's authorization. So I don't know what's your
After he leaked it.
after?
Yeah.
Really? Like, are you sure?
Yeah.
And you get this from the letter?
What letter? The Cruz letter?
Yeah.
Cruz wasn't a fact witness. He doesn't know shit.
So you just get this from you've divined this? Like, what's your
No,
evidence?
so McCabe, you don't have shit. McCabe never said that Comey authorized him to make a leak or that he even sought authorization. That's not found in the IG report on this matter. It's not anywhere. I mean, Comey has never wavered from the claim that he didn't know that this leak was going to happen. The deputy FBI director doesn't need to seek authorization from the FBI director to authorize a leak, and that there's no evidence that was in fact sought. There's no I'm assuming they checked their telecommunication records, they checked their text messages, and so there's just no evidence that he knew about it before the leak. Thanks for playing, man.
Oh, this is okay. Wait.
All right. We got one other people. Yo, what up, Silent Death Monkey?
Oh, hey, how you doing?
Good. What can I do for you?
Um, I just wanted to talk a little Russiagate potentially.
Yeah, hit me.
Um, First of all, I want to say I'm not a MAGA guy. Um, I was following Russiagate at the time, and I thought like the whole thing was just like lawfare and illegitimate.
What do you take to
Um,
be the whole thing? Can you just explain? Like, what's your take of it?
I didn't think the investigation was legitimate into Trump. I didn't think that they actually thought he colluded with Russia in any kind of illegal way to interfere in the election. Um, I don't have proof of that, but that was like my feeling of it the whole time following it.
I think that your opinion there, one, you admit that you don't have proof of that kind of negative intent, which they're knowingly doing something illegitimate or they're knowingly doing something without evidence. So I think that you're self-admitting that you don't have evidence for your claim. And then number two, it's predicated on some notion of what the investigation was, which was that it was investigating Trump himself for colluding with the Russians, when it wasn't. It was an investigation.
Or his campaign.
Well, it was a counterintelligence investigation into specifically 4 people with ties to the campaign, including Paul Manafort, Carter Page, Michael Flynn, and George Papadopoulos. And you're going to tell me whether or not you think that that is justified based on the following. So there's a massive leak of emails after a massive hack of the DNC and DCCC, basically all the Democratic or the major organs of the Democratic fundraising efforts that the Russians initiate. Australia tells the DOJ, hey, like this guy from the Trump campaign seemingly knew about this before it was public knowledge that there was a leak and the Russians have emails that they're going to release. And they told it to one of our people. I'll just leave it there. Do you think the FBI should have investigated that?
Let's see. I guess it would depend like how they knew about it. I don't remember them. I thought maybe like Julian Assange like announced something before, and that's how they knew. I could be wrong about that, but
No. So the investigation, Crossfire Hurricane, was initiated after Alexander Downer, who used to be opposition leader in Australia, but basically went to a bar and George Papadopoulos told him, hey, the Russians have dirt on the Democrats on Clinton's in emails. And he didn't think much of it. He noted it, but then not, weeks later, they released this big tranche of shit. And so Papadopoulos told Downer before it was public knowledge, before anyone knew, right, that there was this massive hack and then before this leak even occurred. And so Downer goes to the FBI and says, hey, this guy, like, he seemed to know that the Russians had dirt. Don't you think that should have been investigated? That's how that has been the foundation of the investigation, which has been, properly understood from Mueller, from the IG reports, from the Durham investigation, and there's no contradictory information that that's how the investigation started. And my question for you is just simple. Do you think that the FBI should have investigated that?
assuming that's all correct, what you said, yes.
Yeah. So the start of the investigation, I think it's hard. Even Durham says it, like, he quibbles. It shouldn't have been a full investigation, but it's a stupid little point that he makes there, and I don't even think it's credible. But he does even he acknowledges that it should have been that there should have been an inquiry opened. The only question is, like, should you have done other these FISA warrants or whatever? But in any respect, I think it's hard to argue that, like, the federal government should not investigate that shit. Can you imagine, by the way, if this were like evidence that, like, a Clinton staffer knew about in advance, a Trump campaign email leak? Is there any chance people would be credibly arguing, hey, yeah, the federal government shouldn't be investigating that shit when we, like, get a tip from a friendly government like Australia, like, hey, this guy looks sus. It looks like he has some prior knowledge, and how does he know that the Russians hacked before it's public knowledge?
Yeah, MAGA would be.
Yes, yeah. So I think it's really hard to argue that you shouldn't initiate an investigation based on that. That's, like, wild.
Yeah. So, assuming what you're saying is accurate, that George Papadopoulos had, like, foreknowledge.
Yeah.
And, like, no one else knew that. at the time. Like, I'd say that's a solid reason.
If you go to
do we know?
Yeah.
Sorry, do we know like how he knew at this point? Was that ever found out?
How Papadopoulos knew?
Yeah.
So there was a professor from Malta named Joseph Misford, apparently, who the U.S. government has alleged has connections to Russia. He's been missing now for years. But that's someone who George Papadopoulos went to, Joseph Misford, this guy who is a professor who we don't know who he is anymore. Maybe he's been killed or whatever. But who our government alleged his connections to Russia.
I have memories of this guy, Misford. I followed it like closely a long time. But like, was he involved in like another, like some kind of operation like a long time ago under a different presidency that was controversial?
Not that I'm aware of. This is mostly what he's most known for. This shit. I'm not aware of his involvement in another investigation.
And I know, like in MAGA world, Joseph Misford is like a very suspicious character, and like how he is involved in this is suspicious. But I don't remember the details really.
Yeah, I think that there are people who think that Joseph Misford was like a plant from the Democrats or something, but it doesn't really make much sense that the Democrats would like self-leak and do this and like release a bunch of embarrassing shit and plant this professor who the government also alleges has ties to the like. And why would they need to even do this if they could just control the intelligence agencies? Right. So like, it doesn't make sense because the intelligence agencies, or at least the FBI, was fucking with Clinton in terms of the email investigation anyway. And so presumably if they had like ultimate control over the FBI, they would just like force the FBI to do whatever they want, but they didn't because they don't. And the Democrats didn't have control of the FBI. And it's such an elaborate plot that would be required and so risky, just like, I don't know, plant a professor to fuck with Papadopoulos to get Papadopoulos to drunkenly say to someone in an Australian bar one day that they could have counted on that guy being at the bar, Papadopoulos going to the bar, him saying something on purpose. Like, this entire thing is a fucking, it just doesn't make sense. The official story is what's believable. But the notion that this Misfit guy was planted by the Democrats, I think, is so implausible, and no evidence of it has emerged, and they've investigated very heavily, Clinton and everyone else, and they're currently in charge of the government. They have these conspirators, Kash Patel, etc., and they're actively looking at this shit. So you think if they would have the goods, they would release them, but they don't because it doesn't exist.
All right, so there's more, other than this. I guess perhaps like the basis of the investigation maybe was legitimate.
Okay.
There are certain things I remember I felt like were like not legitimate, like how they obtained the FISA warrants.
The FISA warrants, I think the big problem there is the failure to disclose certain things to the FISA court. And I think it's without the inclusion of some of this information to the FISA court, where they don't disclose, they disclose like that it comes from a political opposition research at some point during their renewal applications, but they might not have included it in the first ones. And that's important information for probable cause purposes against Carter Page. But I think that was bad, and they shouldn't have done that. And there was even some criminal misconduct by someone later on in the line who changed and doctored an email at some point. But none of that establishes that they were out to get Trump. It really doesn't, because Carter Page wasn't associated with the campaign at the time. He was a water boy, not super important. And Trump himself was not under investigation. They were investigating these separate people as a counterintelligence matter. And I think that there are problems with the FISA warrants. And the reason we know that is because we have IG reports that say what the problems with the FISA warrants were, but they just don't establish, like, if this is your effort to quote unquote get Trump, it's a shitty effort. Like, why would you do that and not a million other things to like fuck with Trump? And I think that there's no evidence that political animus played a role in what's happening here. It's not enough, and that's Durham's finding, and that's also the IG's finding. And so I don't think there's a good reason to think that they were motivated to harm Trump. If they were motivated to harm Trump, why wouldn't they release damaging information before the election? And so I just think it doesn't hold water. Yes, there are problems, even illegality, and aspects about how the investigation was run. But I don't think that establishes that it was done politically, or that it and,
Right.
Trump himself wasn't even like a target of the investigation until after he fired Comey, and that's for obstruction. So I just think that all in all, the evidence is weak that there's political motivations to this case.
I don't know, like I could argue like it's suspicious. So I think the guy who like doctored the email was it James Baker?
No, that's general counsel.
Oh.
Yeah,
Who was it? I don't remember.
it's this guy. It's this guy. Oh God.
Well, it's not important what
No,
his name is, but
by Durham. Oh no, he was convicted by another. What is it? Fuck, what's his name? Doctored email, Crossfire, Hurricane. Kevin Kleinsmith, that's the guy.
okay, yeah. So like I would be like, obviously there's no evidence of this, but like I would be suspicious. Like, did he do this on his own, or like did it come from like higher up? Like obviously he, might not throw whoever's in charge like under the bus, but like you can see how like MAGA would be like very suspicious of this.
Yeah, there's no evidence that anyone else was involved. And remember,
Right,
Kleinsmith,
that's true.
the only reason that he's even like found out altering this email is because someone who was above him was asking him questions, right? So like the only reason he even has to doctor this email is because someone within the department was like pressing him on it, right? So how does it make sense that Kleinsmith is part of a grand conspiracy from the top down if the only reason he's even doctoring this email is in response to people who are senior to him trying to cross their T's and dot their I's and do everything by the book? It just like, there's a lot of like weird shit that is entailed if you take that view. Like if you take the view that it's a top-down conspiracy, like why do this kind of shit? It just doesn't make much sense. Or okay, maybe some people are in it, but not everybody. So, but to me, it just doesn't indicate that the orders to doctor an email came from the top down, and the awareness that because the email pertains to whether he was ever a source for another government agency. The basis for that was known to this other government organization, which is suspected to be the CIA. And so it just seems like, okay, so the CIA is not on board because the CIA so this whole thing, I think, falls apart when you start to say that it's a conspiracy among the top echelons of these different organizations. If it was a effort in that respect, if it's an effort in that respect, I think that you would expect the CIA to like not reveal to Kevin Kleinsmith and to the rest of the FBI team that he was a informant. But they didn't, right?
Okay.
So all of these problems almost like certainly would not have existed but for the actions of the superiors in the first place. And it just looks like regular bureaucratic shit and then some misconduct and illegality by, some, basically just this one person, Kevin Kleinsmith. But it doesn't seem to go any further than that.
Okay, how about they applied for the FISA warrant and it was denied, and then immediately
No,
after...
that's wrong. That's wrong. Just give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Just give me one
Okay.
quick second.
How you doing, Pisco enjoyers?
Okay. 1 sec.
It's all sub to Pisco.
Yeah, please do.
Subscribe and like.
So they didn't actually ever apply for a FISA warrant, which was rejected.
Okay.
They just, the process to get a FISA warrant is very, it's very involved. And so there are multiple levels of sign off that have to occur. So there's specific lawyers who deal with these requests from the Department of Justice. Usually it has to have some deputy level person or the top person sign off on the warrant application. And so they didn't apply before the Steele dossier because internally they felt it wasn't robust enough. They wanted something more. before they were willing to seek those out. And so they waited, and then eventually they got the dossier, which is additional information. And so they never applied pre-dossier, so they don't have a standard to compare.
Okay. So the would you say like the fact that they like relied on the Steele dossier to get the FISA warrant, at least partly, was like an error, or
no? I think the failure to disclose stuff to the FISA court is an error. But think about it like this, right? Like, the standard is probable cause. That's like what you get for a warrant. And imagine that you're like a normal police officer who's seeking a warrant from a judge. Do you need to know 100% sure? Like, let's say you get a tip from someone that you know is pretty reliable, like the neighbor. This neighbor has given you tips before, and they say, hey, I think I see something over there in that building, blah, 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 blah. And it's, not every aspect of the subsource is verified. Not everything is 100%, but that doesn't mean you don't reach the threshold of probable cause, which is something like 30 to 40%, And so it's a low bar to get over the hump there. And it's a little different than a normal criminal warrant in that it's a warrant alleging that you're like a foreign asset, essentially. So it's a little different in that respect. And there are internal checks that kind of make it a little more stringent than a normal criminal warrant. But I don't think that it's a problem to use opposition research to get a FISA warrant. The problem was not the full disclosures of the political nature of how it was sought, and the fact that Carter Page was a former informant for the CIA at some point previously. Those failure to disclose, I think, made it were highly problematic and probably made the warrants illegal. But I don't think that there's evidence that it shows a political, some kind of political motive here. That's what I'm not seeing.
Okay. So I know Carter Page, at the time they got the warrant, he was no longer with the campaign, and maybe he was like not a very important figure in the campaign. What do you think about like the 3-hop rule, where like, they could have like just read like everything in his email archive, for example?
Well, it's just people use this like 2-hop rule shit because they see like Rob Noor post about it, or they see John Solomon or whatever post about it. I think it's a total misunderstanding. So that 2-hop rule is applicable to some of the NSA like bulk surveillance methods where they like get a bunch of metadata and not the content of emails and shit. But a warrant, right? Like a FISA warrant just lets you get all of that person's communications.
Okay, so ignore the hops then.
Yeah, the hops. You could
past
get
emails.
Yeah, you get all of Carter Page's emails. You get all of Carter Page's communications because you have a warrant against Carter Page. What do I think of it? I think it's tailored to the warrant. The warrant is that the reason why the FISA warrant is a little more dangerous is because it's a little bit more all-encompassing, because you're just basically saying that you're a foreign asset. Do I have a problem with that? I have a problem that the warrant was defective, but it's the nature of the warrant is one in which those communications are accessible, and I don't, because I think that there was no political motivation in obtaining the warrant. I don't think that there's anything inherently problematic with the warrant applying as such. I think the problem starts and ends with the substantive issues in the FISA warrant application and renewal process, at least as concerns like sort of this episode in time. So that's my problem, and I think that if you were to take those issues away, then the wide sweeping nature of the warrant would also go away. And so it's all part of the same shit. It's all the same original sin, so to speak. But as it happens, I think that there's additional evidence to make us not as fearful. One is that we know that Trump doesn't use email. And another one is that we know that Carter Page was a minor figure. Even the Trump campaign itself was disassociating with Carter Page publicly, saying like he was no big deal. Like they lied and said that he wasn't affiliated with the campaign at all ever. So that was a lie from the Trump campaign. So they were downplaying him because he was not a big figure in the campaign, and people upplay his, but he wasn't having like all this FaceTime with with Trump. If you read some of the communications, he was trying to play up his importance, as was Papadopoulos. But these people, they were water boys, and so I don't really think there's much fear here.
What do you think about evidence that it was Russia who hacked the DNC? Like, is this relying on like an intelligence assessment? Because as far as I know, like, we do just kind of have to trust.
No, it's
like,
so strong, man. It's so strong that that it was Russia. One is the Russians have all but admitted it. Like, at least with putting aside the DNC hacks just for a second, like Prigozhin admits that they were the Internet Research Agency and they were in charge of a lot of that shit. When it comes to the hacking effort, there is strong independent evidence that it was the Russians, and even the Trump administration now admits it was the Russians. So I just want to be clear about that. Tulsi Gabbard admits that the Russians hacked the DNC. Her latest bullshit is only that they haven't established that the purpose was to help Trump. But now even the official Trump narrative is that is the Russians hacked the DNC. And it's in fact entailed by a lot of their statements. Their statements are, Russia hacked the DNC and they kept all of this other information which they didn't leak, and that shows they weren't trying to help Trump. That's a debunked narrative that I can easily debunk, by the way, if you want to get into that as well. But now everyone kind of accepts, even the Trump administration term 2, that Russia hacked the DNC. So you don't just need to rely on the then existing intelligence reports. The modus operandi is very much Russia, and the Guccifer 2.0 entity that has been linked to Russia. The WikiLeaks itself, known communications with Russians, and this is all established. I mean, do you
think Julian Assange is in the tank for Russia?
I think he was receiving information from the Russians for sure. I don't even think he would deny it at this point.
Well, I don't know. It was like very strange where he made that Seth Rich comment, isn't it?
What do you mean it's strange?
Like he like implied it was Seth Rich at one point, which was very strange. Like, I don't know why he would.
Because he's a liar and he's he's a piece of shit.
Okay, I mean that might be the case.
Yeah. So at this point, do you agree? Let's just take stock. Do you agree that it's most likely that Russia hacked the DNC, given the fact that not even the Trump administration denies that at this point? Okay. So I don't want to hear anymore people say it wasn't Russia that hacked the DNC. The fact that, WikiLeaks would push Seth Rich, of course he would. Because he absolutely was getting information from the Russians, and he understood there were legal implications potentially. And so that's Assange. Assange is a bad guy, not a good person.
I'm wondering, like, did you like brush up on this recently by any chance? Like, how do you remember all this stuff so?
Because I follow up. I know the sources and shit, man. I do these debates with Rob Noor, and the reason why he doesn't like to debate me anymore is because I know this shit.
I mean, you clearly do.
Yeah, man.
I'm trying to think of. Okay, why do you think the investigation lasted so long?
The Russia investigation?
Yeah.
Didn't last that long. I mean, the investigation, Durham's investigation of the investigation lasted longer. The investigation started in 2016. Mueller was done, in 2019? And the reason it extended so long was because, one, the administration kept, obstructing a lot of information streams. They broadened the scope of it because Trump, fired Comey, and so it included an obstruction investigation as well. But the total investigation, I think Mueller comes out with his results in 2019. Crossfire Hurricane starts in 2016, so that looks like 3 years. And Durham spent longer than that. I don't think that a 3-year investigation is that long.
Would you agree that the media was very irresponsible in their Russiagate coverage?
Depends who. Some people probably, but I think that's been grossly
mainstream
exaggerated.
Left-wing media. It was just like front page news almost every day, and it was over the top.
I think that's because. So yes and no. I think there are some people who let their imaginations get the better of them. but I think that this has been exaggerated by conservatives. And I think that part of this causality relates to Trump and his reaction. So, yeah, I mean, if you just let the investigations run their course and cooperate fully, I don't think it would be as much of a something burger. He really just let everything disintegrate when he fired Comey. By getting involved with Comey, he made himself look super fucking guilty. I think he was guilty of obstruction, frankly, in many different spots. And so, yeah, I mean, he is more responsible than anyone. He appoints all of these people who have weird ties to Russia, and weird contacts with Russia, including Manafort, who lobbied for the Russian-aligned Party of Regions in Ukraine, appointing Michael Flynn, who lied about his communications with the Russians as incoming national security advisor. He talks nice about Russia and Putin and stuff. So, yeah, I think that there are some people who maybe went too far, but Trump didn't do himself any favors. And I don't really give a fuck. I expect media to distort and lie and shit, or to be whatever about it. And people will misconstrue like media responsibility as though we have ever had like this standard for totally impartial. Like, this shit doesn't exist. And right now we're seeing all sorts of media distortions, and in terms of emphasis, what they decide to cover, what they don't decide to cover. Everyone will fucking nitpick about what's important, what's not important. What I'm interested in are like, can you point to specific instances of knowing deceit? That's what I think I care about the most. And I think a lot of the Russiagate hysteria has been greatly exaggerated. And I call it the Russia hoax. The notion that the Russia hoax is itself a hoax is a hoax. Sorry, the Russiagate. Yeah, I mean, the Russiagate.
Maybe it was.
The notion that Russiagate is a hoax is, I think, itself a hoax. That's what I mean.
You know, at the time, I was a Bernie bro in like 2015. I was so mad, like, at the DNC for like kneecapping Bernie Sanders and the mainstream media. And maybe I was like just looking at it through that lens, and it like influenced my perception of Russiagate. In the wrong direction.
I think that we should take a nuanced approach of it. I think that the Russia investigation, you can make the following conclusions: that there was a lot of, I think, inappropriate contacts between the Trump campaign and the Russian government, where the Trump campaign seemed eager to receive help from the Russians. Now, does it relate to a conspiracy? It's not been established. And so, no, I wouldn't say that the evidence shows that there was a conspiracy within the Russian government and the Trump campaign. But they were sending election data to Kalimnik, who was a known Russian asset that was from either Paul Manafort or Roger Stone. One of them, I think, was sending, or either Roger Stone was communicating to Guccifer 2.0, and you had Paul Manafort communicating with Konstantin Kalimnik, who is a Russian asset, giving polling information. So that was there. And then obviously the Trump Tower meeting where, Trump surrogates, including Trump's son, was open and willing to accept help from the Russians. That all, at least bare minimum, I would say, inappropriate connections with Russia, willingness and eagerness to help Russia in their pursuits there. I'm not saying that it's illegal or whatever. So I think that's one thing that the Russia investigation establishes. Most importantly, the Russia investigation establishes that Russia interfered in the election in a systematic and overwhelming fashion. I think that that's really important as well. I think that you can say that the Russia investigation was based in beginning, and that there was absolutely a great reason to start that investigation. I think the FISA Warren episode looks bad because it was bad. They shouldn't have not disclose shit to the FISA courts, and Kevin Kleinsmith shouldn't have lied or / altered that email. But I don't think any of either the Durham report, IG Horowitz report establishes that political bias played a role in what's going on here, especially given all the opportunities, the myriad opportunities that the DOJ could have trivially deployed to fuck with Trump even more during the election, including by announcing their shit in the first place, which they weren't. And they didn't give that courtesy to Hillary Clinton when it came to the email investigation. So I think, and you can say whatever you want to say about the media. I don't really have a super strong position there, other than to say I think that there's a lot of like conflation between the media and the government. And if we really had this like overarching grand control that they imply the Democrats have over the DOJ and the media, I think you would have expected to see a lot different things. I think Trump in many ways was treated with far too lightly a hand, and including by Mueller, who decided not to come to a charging decision on obstruction when I think he clearly should have. Anyway, that's my overall take.
Okay. I want to bring it back earlier to the Clinton email thing, because like maybe I'm stupid on this too, but I remember thinking at the time that she was like definitely like guilty of like at least like negligence, but like maybe more. Like she had her private server, like what was it, in like a closet in her bathroom or something?
She
was running the State Department on that, right?
Yeah, so when she was the Secretary of State, she had multiple private email servers over time. There was one in her home. Eventually, she had one at a place with an organization called Platte River Networks. And so there were multiple servers at issue here. There's no evidence that she was aware that classified information was retained on those servers. I don't think there's any good evidence of that whatsoever. And
wasn't she like exclusively using her like personal email instead of her Secretary of State email?
It depends. No, because there were closed systems that she was using. She had her at Hillary Clinton email server account that she was using for a lot of State Department business, which there was a separate report, an investigation by the State Department that found that it was problematic. I don't know if they specifically found that it was against the rules. There was some, prior history of certain secretaries of state using email, but it was kind of a novel. There's not a great deal of history pre 2008-9, right, when email was available as the standard, right? So it's whether or not it violated the State Department rules and whether or not it's problematic. I think it is problematic given the retention requirements under FOIA, et cetera, right? So I'm glad that there was an investigation. Note also that it was an investigation that was initiated by the Obama administration into an ally of the administration, Hillary Clinton. So she was using private email servers for government work and commingling her private devices and her private network for government operations. But the evidence seems to be it was done for convenience. And there's no evidence that really she knew that they had classified information on those servers.
Okay, so it ended up that there was some like secret information in some like SAP programs, which my understanding was like that's like a really big deal.
There was some top secret information. There was I think 3 emails with the classification marking C embedded in the actual email text. But the standard here is when it comes to the classified documents, criminal statutes, it needs to be knowing. When it comes to the national defense information statutes, it usually has to be willful and knowing. There is a subsection for gross recklessness, but gross recklessness under the statute, under the precedent of the Department of Justice in charging, is meant to apply a level of criminal recklessness that is associated with really prominent classified document markers, gross conduct that is just like so beyond the pale. People who are trying to have like a ill motive for the government or who are trying to betray the government in some way. And so the gross recklessness statute, as understood and construed by courts and as applied by the department in the past, doesn't really seem to apply to these kinds of instances. And the proof is in the pudding, really. When you look at what happened with like Petraeus, who was charged, and one of I think Alberto Gonzalez or someone from the Clinton administration was charged. Someone from the Bush administration was charged. It doesn't meet the same of what Clinton did here. Clinton really didn't seem malicious, as the law would define there. So, yeah.
What do you think of, after she got a subpoena to preserve the emails, she had a bunch of them deleted and then say, oh, well, these were supposed to be deleted. Because that doesn't sound like it's legal to me.
Yeah, there's just no evidence that Hillary Clinton was involved in the deletion by Paul Combetta of the emails on Platte River Networks. So Paul Combetta is the employee of Platte River Networks.
Yeah.
But there's no evidence that Clinton authorized that shit. I mean, the congressional subpoena happened, I think, sometime in March, and the Clinton team had already sort of given orders in the previous year to have a new deletion schedule that Paul Gambetta didn't comply with. And there's just no good evidence that Hillary Clinton authorized the deletion of emails after the subpoena was issued. And,
Should anyone have gotten in trouble?
I think it's Paul Gambetta. Perhaps they should have charged him, but they gave him Queen of the Day immunity because nobody wanted to like charge some no-name guy for basically he got scared and deleted it, and knowing that he knew that there was a subpoena, and he got a preservation notice from like one of the lawyers or some shit, and he got scared and realized he should have deleted all that shit according to the previous deletion policy that they had given to him that he had not followed. And basically because they didn't have like confirmatory proof that it was him, he admitted to it after he was given immunity. But there's no evidence that goes beyond him. And so I guess you could hit him with a charge, but they felt that the target was Clinton or people higher up. And this was like some water boy. And so, they made that decision. It doesn't seem like an insane decision to me. And so I don't really give a fuck.
The only thing I don't like about that is, if you're Hillary, you can just like tell him in person, just leave no paper trail, just be like, oh, just do this, say it's for this reason. There won't be a paper trail to me. You'll be fine. And like anyone could get away with just like deleting subpoenaed information by doing.
It doesn't really make much sense though, because like for a couple of reasons. The first is because Hillary Clinton is not meeting with this dude Paul Gambetta. He doesn't know who the fuck this person is, and she's an important person, right? She's not like up to date. She has her people keeping track of that shit. So number one, there's no good evidence that they ever met.
Yeah, I mean, she could have her people tell him. They could say,
sure,
here's what's up, Miss Clinton.
But to what end, right? The tranche of documents they had already given back to Congress and to the State Department contained classified materials on them, and so you would have to. What is the case, right? Like if she's giving over materials actively, right? Like she's actively offering materials to the government that contain classified and even top secret information on it. Why would she do that? At all, and like hide this other tranche that like also is if she's already giving away the stuff that is the nuclear stuff, right? The shit that you're not supposed to touch, which is the classified shit. And so this notion like presupposes that they're reviewing this other tranche of documents and selectively deciding, hey, we're gonna give over the classified some amount of classified shit and keep some other amount of classified shit in the email server, and then we're gonna delete them after we give you an order before the subpoena to delete stuff on a 30-day rolling basis, and we're gonna like wait for you not to follow that, and we're gonna expect you not to follow that, and then we're gonna actively do this whole farce of sending a fucking deletion or retention email, and then he's given immunity, and so why wouldn't he flip? Once he's given immunity, it was a Queen of the Day immunity. This is not total immunity; it's just immunity for the specific thing. At that point, like the incentive is just to flip. Why wouldn't you flip?
Yeah.
It just doesn't. There's just not a good
case to give
like why she would fucking do this. Like why go through all this effort and still hand over a bunch of classified stuff that expose her to criminal liability, and then at the same time, like it's not clear to me that having those materials available and handing them over to the House when asked would expose her to any more criminal liability than she was already facing by giving over classified information in the first place. So no, I just don't think there's a good case to make that she knowingly lied, that Paul Gambetta lied after being given immunity, that Uma Abedin lied, that her other attorney who was involved in the case, who I forget her name at this moment as I sit here. So yeah, I think that the case isn't strong that she was involved in the deletion. There's no good case. Even Rob Moore admits it as much. He just thinks that they should have charged Paul Gambetta anyway to try to get that information of Hillary Clinton. But no, I don't think there's any good case of that. And just saying, well, it's possible they spoke about it. Okay, it's possible they didn't. The burden of proof is on the people alleging the crime. So if you're saying like, okay, there's a way they could have done it such that they wouldn't have received or left behind any traces of evidence, okay, it's possible in both worlds, in which they did confer illegally and in a way that would evade detection, and that they didn't, and the burden of proof is on the prosecutor. So you can't just say it's possible. You have to say that there's a reason to believe it.
Yeah. Well, I think.
Are you surprised I knew this much about the different issues?
I am surprised you knew this much, honestly. Yeah. Like, It seems like you know everything about everything.
Hey, bro. I mean, I look into these investigations. I like to talk about them because this is like the core of what I think is the MAGA mythology.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it's a lot of work to do all that
yeah.
source material reading, which no one does. So
No.
you're the only person I've ever talked to who actually like knew everything about it. And,
Hey, bro.
Yeah, you did a good job.
Hey, man. Appreciate you. This is why and these are good questions, man. Good questions. And I understand a lot of shit looks sketchy sometimes. And if it's presented by certain bad faith actors in a given way, it can look bad. And even people, by the way, who I like, people like Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball, I think that they've bought into this Russia hoax too much. And they've given too much ground on Ukraine, on Russia. I'm at some point I want to talk to them about that because I think it's like,
I'd love for you to talk to maybe like Michael Tracy or Aaron.
Oh,
Mattei.
yeah. So, Tracy I talked to about Epstein stuff. I do want to talk to Tracy about the Russiagate stuff because he's unhinged on it. So are like who's this loser, Matt Taibbi's of the world, Aaron Matei's of the world. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and I think that they're seeing ghosts where there are none, and sometimes they have bad motives. Recently I liked a lot of Michael Tracy's stuff, especially as relates a lot of the Kirk mythologizing, a lot of the even on some of the Epstein stuff. I think that he has points that people are unreasonably not listening to, but yeah, no, I'm at some point I would love to talk to them about it.
Yeah, I talked to you one time a while back. I don't know if you remember, but I asked you to look at the Radley Balco articles on George Floyd. I don't know if you ever got around to it.
Why don't you resend them to my way and I'll check my DMs at some point, okay?
All right, I'll send it to your DMs.
All right, later, brother.
All right, thanks. Have a good one.
Thank you. I see someone else in the disagreements. I can't do another one. I have to go to bed. I do have to say, guys, I really appreciate the support. You guys have been great. Numbers have been fantastic. If you have it in your heart, follow me on TikTok at Pisco. If you have it in your heart, sub to the channel. We're getting close to 25,000, which is the next like kind of ask me anything post I'll put up for question and answer stuff. So that's going to be sick. I potentially am going to have some big collabs to announce hopefully soon. So stay tuned for that. Follow me on X, follow me on Blue Sky. I don't know, whatever. It's all Pisco Liddy or Pisco's Hour. But I really super appreciate all of your support. And hopefully we'll have more to talk about soon. Maybe tomorrow morning I'll be live I'll try to be live tomorrow at 9:30 per the schedule. We'll try to keep closer to the schedule. There's been a lot of shit coming up, guys. All right. So much love. Stay cool. And hey, I love you.